Hey, hey, how is everybody? It is Wednesday night now and time for another football hangout. Let me get over to YouTube over here. This is where I usually, oh, look at that. I didn't even have to go to YouTube and the live stream came up. I got to turn my volume down here. I got a fun night ahead of us. We're talking ball, of course. We've got a hangout. We are live right now, so if you happen to get here, please check in over to the side, check in the comments, let us know that you're here, let us know where you're watching from. We are talking spread run game tonight, and I've got two guests in the house. I've got a lot of little screens here going on, so I'm navigating all this. I've got Grady Breen in the house out of Maryland. I've got Mike Peck in the house, who I have not met. And I think if I saw correctly, he's from Washington. So I've never met Mike. He's in the house tonight. Two guys that claim to be spread guys. And hopefully can teach you a little bit. We can talk some spread run game. So welcome, guys. We are live right now. I'm in downtown Champaign, Illinois. I got two guests coming in here momentarily and excited to have them. Following our live stream, and we'll go live talking spread run game from about 8 to 8:30. Talk for about half an hour. And then I'll just turn it over to, and that's when you get to see one of our clinic videos from the online clinic. That's clinic.chiefpigskin.com. Tonight's video comes from Toby Vallis of the Farmington Farmers in Farmington, Illinois. They are 30-3 over the last 3 years. They're playing incredible football, and Toby Vallis is leading the way there. He used to be a double wing type guy, and now he's a spread guy. And he, you know, we had a good interview about that, about why they went to it, what he likes about it. I really enjoyed talking to him about it. I mean, now they just play great football, and they're moving the ball like crazy. Like I said, 30-3 over the last 3 years out of Farmington. So super impressive. So that video will show, and that'll be live right after this. Now, if you're not watching this video within the last 24 hours of this going live, that video will be gone. But you can always find those videos over on our clinic, and that's at clinic.chiefpigskin.com. That's for our members. We've worked really hard on that, and we hope that you guys will check it out. I think it's dynamite. It's dynamite. I mean, the amount of info is ridiculous. So I hope that you guys will eventually check out clinic.chiefpigskin.com. And that video will be showing here afterwards. It'll stay live on this video here for about 24 hours. All right, I'm gonna head over and I'm gonna tweet this out. Let everybody know that we are live on YouTube right now. Come say hi. And then I'm gonna let our guests in and we will start talking spread run game, and we'll just get our night kicked off. Tweet. Boom. We are live. We hope that you guys will come check us out, and might as well go. Hey, I'll get these guys in here, and then I'll go check in to I'll do Instagram. It's hard to do all this and think at the same time and speak. So here we go. Let's get these guys in. Welcome, everybody. If you're just getting here, check in. Let us know where you're watching from. Live in our chat here. We try hard to go back and forth between our chat and our guests. There we go. Letting Coach Breen in. Letting Coach Peck in. Get these guys in the house. Coach Breen, how are you?
What's up, buddy? Good to see you.
Great to see you. Mike Peck, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Now, Mike, I'm great, man. Mike, I've never met you, so welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Tell us where you coach.
Prairie High School in Vancouver, Washington.
Vancouver, Washington.
Yeah, so we're just slightly north of Portland, Oregon. Don't associate us with those guys with all that stuff that's going on. But yeah, been at Prairie, the head coach there for 2 years. And we won the league title last year for the first time in 25 years, and went 9-2 playoffs. And again, obviously, we have great kids, so it's been a blast. But unfortunately, we're not playing right now. We're pushed off to the spring.
Yep.
But it's allowed me to talk ball with guys across the country, which has been awesome.
Right. Us too. We're pushed to the spring too. This right here is Grady Breen, Coach Peck. I met Grady, man, was that last spring or was that the spring before?
spring before.
Spring before, that's right, because last spring was COVID. Wow, time flies. Well, I drove out to Maryland, and I hit Coach Breen's high school, and wait, I just remember it was in Sykesville. I know the South Carroll. South Carroll High School, and he talked some spread run game stuff. He called attacking gaps from the outside in, and he talked quarterback play. So Coach Breen, and then since then you've taken over the head lacrosse job. You still at the same spot, doing the same job?
Yeah. So and Coach, just for background, Mike and I have talked a couple times. He's a great resource on empty pass game. I've asked him some stuff.
So you guys know each other.
Appreciate that. We've chatted a few times, and Grady, he's a football-aholic, which I love.
He is, isn't he?
Yeah, we've bounced ideas off each other before, and that's what's so great about the profession and Twitter and stuff like that, is the connections you make and just the ability of to be able to share ideas from people 3,000 miles away.
Yeah. Nate, to answer your question, so I'm varsity lax and then JV head coach for football. Because of our schedule in the spring, I think I'm going to be the only coach in the school to overlap. So because there's a lot of things we got to figure out, but there's potential for 2 weeks of me coaching 2 sports in the same day.
That's tough, man. That is tough. But the thing is, those coaches that do football wrestling, if your football team's any good, you know, I remember my dad, we had 4 straight years. I was a kid, but 4 straight years where we made the state semifinals, and my dad was on the football staff, and he was the head wrestling coach. So, once you get like past round 2 in the playoffs, it was wrestling season. And I remember he'd go from football to wrestling practice, which had to start late because of football. And he'd do that till we lost, and then it'd be back about his business. Well, guys, welcome tonight. We've got Grady Breen in the house and Mike Peck. We are coast to coast tonight, baby. We're coast to coast. We got Maryland in the house for Coach Breen. We got all the way to Washington and Coach Peck. I'm right in the middle, in the heart of America. And where are you guys from? If you're in the chat tonight, please let us know where you're watching from. Say hi. We really love to hear from you guys. As we ask questions and shoot them out, feel free to put your own answers right there in the chat to respond on your own. Talk amongst yourselves. Shoot any questions you may have at these guys. Now, these little hangouts that I've been doing, they go pretty fast. So I'm just going to dive in, boys, and start talking ball. I'll kind of pick out a guy specifically just to help keep the conversation flowing. But let's kick things off. Tonight we're talking spread run game. Now listen, you could take it where you want to take it, but I was thinking specifically spread run game gap schemes at first, okay? So first question off the top, Grady, why do you suppose, in your opinion, would a guy, not saying that one is better than another, but let's say, why would you say a guy would prefer to be a gap seam type guy instead of going zone?
I'll reflect back, friend to Chief Pigskin, Jerry Smith, who coaches over here at Brunswick High School. He called me the other day because he was thinking through some stuff potentially. And he was just talking about, how he's typically an 11, 20 personnel guy. And he typically likes to go zone. But now he was thinking about going with more of a gap scheme because he thought his kids could probably pick it up quicker. I think, I quote Jerry, because he usually knows what he's talking about, but I think that's usually why people talk about gap, there's a time intensive level a lot of times with zone. That some guys are like, you know what, I need to try to get this thing done and installed and mastered, that last part being the most important part. There's a lot we can do with zone. There's a lot we can do with a whole bunch of things. Sometimes you need to really be able to blow someone off the ball. You need to play your angles better. Maybe you don't have guys that fit zone footwork well. So that's generally the way, 40,000 foot view of why gap scheme is a thought. There's a lot of kind of nuance in there. I think I look at it a little differently. I was thinking about this today before the call, but I'll kick it over to Mike on what he thinks.
Yeah, for sure. one thing with inside zone and outside zone is a lot of coaches preach that you kind of have to major in those two things. And if you do them, you got to spend all your time on working those against fronts and things like that. And they're great. They're great run schemes. But for me, we're a big gap team scheme. And the thing I love is the versatility of it. You can do a lot with gap schemes, from power, counter, H counter, trap. Even I consider duo a gap scheme because it's kind of based off that family. And I think it's simple too. With a lot of times the front side stays the same, and so the teaching of it is pretty simple. Plus of all the things you can add to it with front side, back side RPOs and play action and things like that. I know one big argument for inside zone teams is you get double teams at the point of attack. Well, I think gap schemes, you get the double team at the point of attack as well, and you're pushing them backside. And so I think you can use that argument for gap teams as well. And so that's what we major in. And obviously I'm a big believer in that, but just the amount of things you can do and kind of change. I mean, small adaptations. You can pull the center instead of the backside guard for the kick out. It just allows a lot of flexibility and create different looks and things like that. And you can obviously a ton of different personnel groupings as well.
Well, I'm going to circle back around to some of those questions and piggyback off some of your guys' thoughts. I do want to check in with our guys in the chat, though. A couple guys have said hello. Coach Quiroga's in the house. He's like one of our faithful guys. He's out of Chicago, back of the yards, and in Chicago, back of the yards high school, head coach there. He's doing a great job. Big-time option fan. They're going to be pistol option. Brian Will, how do you say your name, Coach? Willie, and I know he said hi before, out of Fairmont, Minnesota. And Coach Kroger out of Dolphus, Ohio. Coach Kroger has stopped in before and said hi. So welcome, guys. Great to have you. Feel free to chime in with your own answers to any of these or your own thoughts. Will E. Yep, Brian Willie. So welcome, Coach. Chime in with your own thoughts, fellas, or have your own questions, whatever you want. But we want to try to balance between our guys here that are with us and you guys in the chat. And here with us tonight, we got Grady Breen out of South Carroll High School in Maryland, and Mike Peck out of Washington, but I forgot the name of your high school. Prairie something.
Prairie High School, yeah.
Okay, Prairie High School. All right, Prairie High School in Washington. And there's Coach Freeman's in the house. Welcome, Coach Freeman. Also out of Minnesota. We got 2 Minnesota guys in the house tonight. Those guys are gearing up for a season now. They were in our boat without it, and they just got approved. So here's my question. Okay, I think I am legitimizing saying this. So I've been, as the last time I was calling an offense, 7-8 years, it's been wing T. I mean, pretty regular wing T stuff. And so when I talk to a lot of wing T guys, I keep hearing them say, I'll ask that question. And as I'm making videos, why do you choose blank offense, right? I mean, that's a very good question to ask a guy. And I hear the wing T guys say it all the time, like, we feel like it is... we love our blocking angles with our gap schemes, downs and kicks. And I don't know necessarily that I understand completely what they mean by. What, in your opinion, fellas, what is easier about teaching gap than is zone? Because it does seem to be fairly universally agreed upon that gap schemes seem to be simpler to teach, or at least that the zone seems to be more complicated. So let's kick it off with Coach Peck this time. Why do you suppose that is? What am I missing here? I agree with everyone, but I guess maybe I'm wondering, why do I agree? I don't know that I know.
Yeah. Well, my first thought is one of the beautiful things about football is there's a million ways to do things. Just like wing T can be successful, flex bone triple can be, air raid to different spread systems. At the end of the day, it really comes down to what you as a coaching staff knows and what you can teach to your kids and the adjustments based on those. So for us, we're obviously gap scheme. Our staff knows gap scheme. We know what looks we're going to get. We know the adjustments we're able to make, and we can coach it up. I'm not saying gap scheme is better than inside zone, because if coaches know that, that's what then they need to teach their kids, and they can make the adjustments based on that because what they know. it's no different to me than running a 3-4 or a 4-2-5. It's all good. It's just how well you can coach it up and know the adjustments and get your kids to execute. And so I'm not going to pick one against the other. It's just about the ability to know, to teach, and get your kids to execute in all different situations. And so whether that be inside zone or gap scheme, neither one is right or better than the other. It just goes back down to those couple things.
Okay. What do you think, Breen? Is that a misconception that one's easier than the other, or is one easier?
No, I think in general, throughout all, and you find this especially with O-line coaches, we look at one thing as easier because we know it. So you talk to guys, you'll talk to wing T guys, you're like, this is easy, like I can I can put this in a day. And then you talk to an inside zone guy and they're like, this is easy, I'm a zone guy, I'm not a gap guy. So I think a lot of it comes down to our background. I think there's probably less rules that change with gap, and in terms of gap down backer kind of stuff, in terms of where you're going. So I think that's the whole thing about it. And then you go to option guys and you're like, what do you find easiest? And they're like, inside veer, and you're like, so it's a lot of it's kind of where we come from and what we know and what we can fix. Just to completely quote Coach Peck, like that's what I found. Some guys who are coaching zone, like they're gonna say, I don't know how to coach pullers. That's ugly. I don't know why we're pulling guys. And then wide zone guys are like, I can fix this in a day. So the guys that are in between all of those things are the guys that I really trust. You're like, what do you do here? And I think that in those situations, they find that it's quicker to fix gap, if that makes sense.
Okay. I like that. Now, here's the thing. So, first of all, I'll check in the chat here real fast. Jerry Payne in the house out of Charleston, Illinois, says he's splitting time. He's got split screen right now. Us on one and an emergency board meeting on the other screen. Hopefully the sound's on ours, not on theirs. I'll play it. Lucas Freeman says zone running back reads can be very complex. Freeman says, I think gap scheme not only makes it easier for line, but also easier for the backs. Brian Willie, from my experience, gap scheme seems to be much more friendly scheme to less athletic or undersized O-line, where zone schemes require more physical displacement or athleticism to get out and run. Now, and I feel like I could go a tangent off what Willie was saying, which I might come back to that. But let me ask you guys this, because I want to make sure I get this question in before I forget it. So we are, the school I'm at right now, I'm an assistant coach on staff. I help with slot receivers. I mostly focus on our secondary, but also help with our slot receivers. We are loaded right now at receiver. We're loaded at receiver. And our coach loves playing with a tight end, but I think we're all looking at it going, yeah, but we're loaded with all these little skinny bodies who are super great athletes. So we like the look of 10 personnel right now, but we've been such a heavy gap scheme team. What else do you guys like out of 10 personnel if you're for gap scheme, besides your standard counter tray? Because I think counter tray you can run with that 5-man surface. But what else do you like gap scheme wise if you're 10 personnel?
Yeah, I guess I'll start. Well, first of all, we're a base 10 personnel team.
Okay.
And literally our formation is, we just say base. And if we don't even give a formation, they just know to line up in 2x2. But we can run all our stuff out of that look. And that's one of the things we kind of pride ourselves on. So we can run counter GT out of that. We can run power read out of that. We can run what would typically be H counter, but the tackle or the tailback would be the wrap now, instead of having like a sniffer be the wrap. And then obviously you get your fly sweep series going off that. With fly sweep, you can do power read off that. You can do fake the fly sweep, counter read going off that. And I'm not sure if I said this, but with our fly, we run power read with that no matter what. And so we double crack on the outside and get the tailback lead. And so if the QB pulls it, he's going A-B gap on their power read. But we try to create a system to where no matter what personnel grouping we're in, we can still run all of our plays. And we don't call them a different play. Like for us, I'm in a group chat with some other guys. Houston is our H counter. Now it doesn't matter if it's just a tailback who's back there. He knows if he hears Houston, he's the wrap. And so we try to create a system where the flexibility is that we can run that in 10 personnel, we can run it in 20 or 11. It doesn't matter. It just be Houston, and they just got to learn the rules based on where they're kind of lined up. And the beautiful part of that is, like, I like to call our offense kind of like a power spread, because obviously, in my mind, in 10 personnel, you still get your two-back run game in a lot of ways, as long as your QB is somewhat mobile.
Okay, sure.
But you also get your drop-back game in any form or fashion you want. And so to me, in my mind, that's really tough to defend. And so that's kind of my answer to that question. But we try to be able to run everything from every formation. And again, like I said, 10 is our base, but we also, I would say 11 personnel with an H-back is our second most common. And we can run all of our run plays out of both those.
Okay. We think Grady.
Yeah, I would, when I think of 10, I try. It sounds like a cop out. Basically, what I think of in gap, I think of everything that's non-true zone. And I'll probably get some flack for that because it's probably simplifying man schemes. I think of dart as a bit of a gap scheme. I think dart's important. I think the being able to protect all of your inside gaps with how darts run, and then pulling that tackle. It also screws around with some linebacker reads, because if they're keying guards or if they're keying back.
Tell us what you mean by dart.
So dart is like tackle. So dart is tackle pull.
Oh, just tackle pull.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So if you go back in like the old, like Art Briles 2013 or like 2012, 13, 14, 15, they would run a ton of dart RPO. And they would pull up, even in like 20 personnel or in 10 or 11, they would pull dart. And then if the 8th box guy came off the roof, they would throw like RPO choice post behind it. That's where I think dart kind of probably picked up the most steam. You'll see Memphis do it some. I think Florida State's done it a little bit. Well, when Kendall was there. So,
and is he pulling to kick or pulling to wrap?
He's pulling a wrap. So the play side tackle's going out. Basically, largely it's a man scheme, and there's a lot of dudes who know this much better than I do. So it's basically man, and then that backside tackle is pulling.
Okay.
And because that backside guard can stay and block, there's no that backside run through that you're gonna get. With a center blocking back, and that backside linebacker shooting the gap and hitting your quarterback in the face. So in terms of RPO reads, dart's a lot cleaner because you've got your inside gaps clean, and then you can option that place that backside to end. That's why I would say most dudes like dart. And Brett Dearman, the Kansas OC, he says like that's why it's always tricky to run gap RPOs, is because that center blocks back, that guard pulls, all of a sudden you've got the book of Exodus right in front of you, and that linebacker, if he knows what he's doing, especially if he knows the scout, he'll hit your quarterback in the mouth as he's throwing a ball, and it's not a comfortable feeling. So I like, out of 10, I like dart. You could probably do, I would have to look at the front, but you could probably do some sort of duo. The biggest thing, what I think of in all of this conversation is I try to think about like aiming points. So zone. So with zone runners, they're typically their primary hole is going towards the double teams and then falling back. But I think with gap, your primary hole is away from the double teams. Mm-hmm. So even with some veer stuff in terms of that big heavy front side down double team, it's tight zone in Ohio State's verbiage, but it looks a lot more like veer. But I really like that, that clean hole where you're making that defensive end really sit down and close that gap as much as you can. That stuff I like that stuff I like in 10, because then you're not giving a cloudy read for your runner. It's like if it's there, it's there. but you're still getting the looks of everything else. So it's kind of that happy medium. There's some veer influence. There's some, yes, it's zone if you want to look at it a certain way, but it's running away from where the double teams are going.
Yeah, that's Zier, right? Pretty much what you're talking about is Zier. It's a combination of zone and veer, and I've ran that plenty of years, and it fits into the gap scheme for us. But it's basically veer from shotgun or pistol, and it creates that second layer or second level kind of balance once you get past the D end a little bit.
Yeah.
Well,
it's nice. It's nice to be able to watch a back like go downhill now and then cut without having to like press it and fall back before he's even crossed.
Right.
Well, I'm going to check in with our guys in the chat real quick. We got Coach Campos in the house out of Carbondale, Illinois. Welcome, Coach Campos. And if anybody else is just getting here, we want to encourage you to check in over the side. We are live right now. I'm in downtown Champaign, Illinois. Grady Breen is out in Sykesville, Maryland. Or I don't know if you live in Sykesville, actually. What city you live in?
I live in Frederick, so we can just call it Sykesville.
Hey, he's in Frederick, Maryland, and Coach is way out in Washington, man. We're coast to coast, but I don't know the name of your town now, Coach Peck. What town?
Vancouver, Washington.
Oh, he's in Vancouver. That's right. So we got a guy in Vancouver, a guy out in Maryland, in the sticks, really. I mean, from what I remember when I drove through, it was the sticks, right? Am I wrong?
Parts, yeah.
Yeah. It's the stick. And I didn't realize that there was that many sticks in Maryland. But it's very open country and very beautiful. Right as I got out of the mountains, and I'm in downtown Champaign, so we are live. Tonight, we are right now in a spread run game hangout. We got about 10 minutes left. And then when we finish this, I'll be switching over to a clinic from our online clinic. You can find our online clinic at clinic.chiefpigskin.com. We've worked really hard on that. I have traveled the nation. I have driven my butt out to Maryland to see Grady Breen for this. I've driven my rear end out to California. I've been all sorts of places, and I just sent emails to New Mexico today. I'm hoping for a New Mexico trip in November. So welcome, guys. Check in. We usually show up here to hang out Monday through Thursday nights. We hope you'll come check in. Like, subscribe if you haven't already. Those things really help. And now let's get it back to our guest tonight and finish out this conversation on spread run game. Here's a question that I have. I have two questions here that I really want to get to, and I struggle how to prioritize these. But let's talk about that word priority. For me, the last X years, it's been very easy for me to go to practice and say, okay, if in order for us to be successful, we know as a wing T team, we had to be fantastic at running the ball. We could give up a lot throwing the ball because we had to be great at this. To help me understand for you guys, and just in this world of, again, because if I ever get to call an offense again, I don't know for sure that I'll still be a wing T guy. I've visited so many guys, seeing so many guys that are being successful. Help me understand, how do you approach your offensive approach? I felt like one of our advantages was having an identity and being able to latch on to this, and our kids knowing we run the ball, just kind of be able to make a big fist and just really dive deep into this is what we try to do great. How do you approach that in a spread it's a spread running game? Not that you have to throw it more, but most teams are going to throw it more than what a wing T team would. Do you feel like, help me, I guess I'll just stop talking and turn that over. I think I've asked enough. What is identity now as we go in, and though we're a more wide open team and our offense has less definitions to it? Does that make sense? Like wing T is like, it just feels so very, it's been defined, right? Like you know who you're supposed to be. And I feel like most other offenses are very wide open. Like you get to be almost who you want. How do you approach that identity piece?
I think they can look kind of wide open from the outside, but within your team, your players and your staff, you have your foundation, your offensive philosophy that you want. So just an example for us, no matter what, we're going to make the defense defend all 53.5 yards of the field. And that's not counting the vertical space. We're going to be great up front with be able to run the ball, but we're also going to be able to find ways to get the ball to our playmakers in space. And how that looks each game it might change.
Sure.
But we know that if we're going to be a championship football team, we got to be great up front. It doesn't matter if you're air raid or spread option or wing tee. You got to be great up front. But like last year, I mean, there's a couple times we threw the ball 50 times a game, and there's a couple times we threw it like 15 times a game. When your kids understand the philosophy of your offense and what you're trying to accomplish, I think there's a ton of buy-in there. And again, like I said, there's times where the O-line is completely fine with pass pro in a bunch, but there's other times where we're going to get downhill after it over and over, and the receivers take pride in blocking because they see the big picture. So I think from the outside, people might not know exactly what your philosophy is and what you're trying to do. But all that matters is your players and your coaches know, and you can execute that on any given Friday. And it might look different, but it's really not. I mean, it's the same system. You're just emphasizing different parts based on game plan and things like that. And so I think it's important to be able to have flexibility in your system to be able to do different things. Like it might look air raid-ish, but it's still part of our power spread system. And so just the ability to be flexible, your kids understand why we're doing certain things, and when they understand and take ownership, it's a lot of fun that way.
Okay.
Yeah, just I'd probably not having called an offense until this year, just kind of wear a bunch of hats and nerd out a bunch. What I would say in general, like what I always reflect on is we call and we create offensive and defensive situations that are aesthetically pleasing to ourselves. Like if we want to call a gap scheme, it's because we get emotionally excited watching somebody pull. Like I have to kind of understand that about myself. If I don't like that, if I like watching one cut football, I'm gonna run with wide zone. But if I like watching a guy pull, I'm gonna create like a gap scheme in my offense. So I think it's tricky. Mike is much more qualified to answer this than myself. I've been on a staff, or Nate, the presentation that I did for you, a couple of years back. The year before I got back there, they had one or two guards that just weren't really ready to pull, and you fall out of favor with gap scheme pretty fast if if the center's getting blocked back and the pulling guard trips and he's not getting there. And then the year I was there, they had two guards that were power forwards and were running with the tight ends and the fullbacks. So that's the kind of dynamic. I think, yeah, it's some part of execution. It's also just like, dang, that was pretty when we call something. So I think that explains a lot of the differences between the spread. I think wing T, there's a smaller, like people get emotionally excited about wild buck sweep and crisscross. Spread, word guys that talk about 10, 11, 20 personnel gap run scheme or gap scheme run. Other guys are going to talk about tight zone bubble, mesh, Y corner, and that's what makes them smile in the film room. That's the stuff we call. Like we can talk about it a lot of different ways, but that's the stuff we kind of own, and I kind of always have to remind myself of that.
Okay, I'm ready for the last question here, fellas. Really appreciate those answers. Last question, we're going to then turn it over into our clinic video from Toby Vallis. He's from Farmington High School in Farmington, Illinois, the Farmington Farmers. And they're 30-3 over the last 3 years. They're playing fantastic football. Awesome. And he's a former double tight, double wing type guy. I mean, we're talking like a decade ago. And he went full-fledged gap. His team actually does run. They'll run gap scheme and zone scheme. He's a really good coach, obviously, and he's got a great thing going right now. But his presentation is what's coming up next. It's only 25 minutes. I encourage you guys to check it out. Last question. Here's a question that I have. When it comes to gap scheme football, I have a hard time asking a kid to down block alone if that play is not hitting right now. For example, when I am going to, if I'm under center and I'm going to run belly or old school belly, G scheme, down, down, pull, my tight end was asked to down block, and he's alone. He's on an inside gap player. He's alone. But, I mean, we're by you now. We're by you now. I'm not very comfortable asking a kid to block down, trying to run power at him, because I feel like power hits significantly slower. And it's very, very hard to ask a kid to hold a down block, one-man down block, one-on-one. So, like, if we're going to run at a kid, like if I got a down block and I got a kick out coming, so whatever that is, counter tray. If it's counter, it's power, anything where I'm pulling from the opposite side, okay? Of course, not trap. Trap doesn't count. Trap's like its own thing, right? But that down block, I want a double team with it. So most teams do. So my question is, because this is where I always want to be multiple, but there's some stickiness to being multiple because now you run into some problems. For example, I bring in my tight end into the game. And maybe he's a true tight end, maybe he's an H-back, maybe he's just off the line, whatever it is. But I want to run counter at the strong side. Well, now, do I need the double team between my tight end and tackle now? Or am I going to keep the double team on the inside between the guard and tackle because they're the ones that are used to repping it? And I'm going to just say, hey, tight end, if you get a gap defender, skip him. We'll kick him anyway, and you go down to backer. Or am I going to take time to be able to, what's happening here, boys? Give me a second. Can you still see me?
Yes.
We got you.
It just told me that it signed me out, but it looks to be working on all systems. So, or do I take time to teach now, we're going to actually run this one gap further out? Okay, so I went in a long circle there, and I'm sorry if I wasn't clear, let me know. But what are some of your thoughts there when it comes to being multiple within the formations? Do I have to still operate as if I still had a 5-man surface? Or can I start spreading this out like a gap further out?
Just, again, there's no right or wrong, just kind of answering how we do it. We don't really have a true tight end per se, but we do have an H-back. And even if we do have a tight end, we always want a double team at the point of attack.
Yes.
And so completely agree with you on that. So depending on front, we're always going to have a double team between the guard and tackle, or it's going to be the center and guard. But we're always going to have a double team at the point of attack. If we insert a tight end or an H-back that's just kind of off the ball, we're always going to arc release him. So we always play in that 5-man surface.
Okay.
And so we're always going to read that guy. And we can kick him if it's power, like that H-back would kick the D end.
Yeah.
Obviously, but you would still have that double team between the guard and tackle on the 3 to the backside linebacker. But we're always going to create a situation to where the O-line, including the tight end H-back, they don't have to worry about that D end. We're going to do different things with him. And so our 5 linemen, their blocking rules never change based on if there's a tight end or an H-back back there. They know there's a double team to the front side, and then the back side will change based on run call. And then we love to read that back or that front side end or the back side end, depending on if it's power or counter. But we try to make it so those 5 linemen, it's a 5-man surface for them, and they don't have to worry about the tight end if there's a 9 technique or whatever, because even if there's a 9 technique, that means there's going to be a 3. So we're going to release that 3 or that tight end, read the 9, double team the 3 to the backside, and we can obviously do different things with that as well. But to us, we teach it so our 5 linemen, they have no idea of if there's a tight end or H-back in there.
Right.
And obviously they know one through practice, but the idea is they don't have to know because it's not going to change what they do up front. And I think that allows us to be pretty creative with our backfield actions, with our emotions, and nothing changes for the O-line that way. They have their set rules, but we can get pretty dang creative in the backfield with not just running backs and QBs, but also different motions and things, different presentations as the play goes on.
Yeah, Mike's answer was outstanding, and he's much more qualified on this than I am. I just think in general, in all line play, I think first and foremost, wing T tends to way more in the C gap, zone in the B, and then gap more in the like true A gap. That's what you see all the North Dakota State guys run. I just think it comes down to how well are you teaching your building blocks? How well are you, teaching your double teams, whether it be, guard, like I forget who I saw do this, but they were all, teaching their double teams no matter who was together. So if it was guard center, guard tackle tight end, they had guard and tight end at one point, just because you have to understand, okay, you're next to me, so we're gonna be double teaming here. That's what I think what it comes down to. And I think in my point of view, I think that's what makes good multiple teams multiple, because the kids are understanding, just exactly as Mike was saying, that, okay, this is what I need to rely on, and I just need to do this well, rather than, I have to do all of these things until the fullback gets through. So that's all.
Now, I'll tell you this, and I'm a little bit over my time. One of the things that I love about gap schemes, whether you're under center or gun, whatever, one of the things I love about it that I think is probably a little maybe untalked about is the fact that I feel like you can use pullers not just as blockers, but they become incredible influencers. Right. And I feel like you're getting in my opinion, and I fully acknowledge this is opinion, and there could be others and I could be wrong, but I feel like nothing quite influences backers like pulling linemen. And I feel like you can use that in just so many ways, whether it's to lie to them because you're going to throw the ball behind their head, or lie to them because you're going to send a guard this way and actually run the other way. And my understanding of gap scheme football from the gun, spread run teams, gap scheme football, lately, I want to say lately, maybe last 2-3 years, I've really begun to see it way more as I'm going, man, this is option football, really. I mean, right? I could read the guy, I could pull away from this D end and read him, or I could pull at him and read him. It's like I could do so many things, and the more I look at him, like, this is option football, right? It's not under center, turn my back and ride veer. But it's still, I'm pointing that ball at that DN and waiting to see what he's going to do, and whether I'm going to pull it and now get it out to the perimeter, or I'm going to pull it and run and stick my toe in the ground and go north-south. My eyes have been open the last 2-3 years going, man, this spread gap scheme football, I've really begun to understand more and more as option football, and so much you can do with it. What are you thinking, Grady?
Yeah, just two things, because I think they're really applicable. One of my favorite replays I've ever seen, I think it was 2017 Panthers versus the Saints. It was on like the 1 yard line, and I think the Panthers ended up scoring on a goal line sneak, and they pulled both guards either way. So what happens so you see, them pull, and that D lineman's looking to get in the hip pocket of the guard, and half of an A gap is now open on either side of the center, and Cam Newton scores. Mm-hmm. So, I think in this zone world, I was meaning to say this earlier, in this zone world, we're talking about a bunch of linebackers who have been growing up, depending on your area. It's different in the Midwest, it's different out here, it's different out where you are, Mike, where they're keying the ball since they were in 6th grade. And they can stack, track, fall back, half decent, but how good are they at tracking ball and counter when all of a sudden you're moving 2 gaps from one side of the center to the other side of the center. So that's what I think about. I think if you can speak a different language than what the linebackers are understanding, you can do a whole lot of things, So, yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And the one thing with spread gap scheme is it fits with spread option completely very well. I mean, like, we're one of the few teams I know of that will run power read from, and we're not true pistol, but because we're not at 3.5, but our QB would be at 4.5, running back at 7, but he's directly behind the running back, and we'll run front side power read like that, but we'll also run it inverted where he's offset. But we have the ability, we're a spread gap team, but we can read the backside D end or read the front side. And again, that's just spread option right there. And kind of goes back to what Grady was saying. And I love what you were saying too with kind of the false pulls. It was the first college football game of the year, and I think it was the first play of the year, and I can't draw a blank on who the team was, but maybe it was Arkansas State. But they ran like basically up front. They blocked it like it was power right, single back power right. The guard pulled, everybody else down blocked, but they ran speed option opposite. And ended up scoring on that play. And you saw the two inside linebackers, they flew with the pulling guard because that's what they're reading. And then all of a sudden you're out the backside pitching it, and they don't have cutback or trail or anything like that because they're so far out of position. And normally it doesn't go for a touchdown, but it happened to at that time. But in gap schemes, when you see linebackers really reading guards and pulling and stuff, you can do a lot to kind of mess with them like that. And that's a simple one that I think it was Arkansas State who did it. And it can be a lot of fun. And again, it doesn't really change the rules for anybody because the O-line can know, they think it's power right, but they have no idea what the backfield action is, and they don't need to know. They really don't. And so it can be pretty fun and creative that way, and a lot of things you can do with it.
I like that a lot, which is probably, I really think that as I move on in my career and if I go and spread some things out, I am a little attached, and some of it is a lot is emotional, like Grady said. I'm attached to a lot of those pulling guards and such, but I see a huge advantage, especially at the high school level when you're dealing with less mature linebackers who they've just seen less plays in their life than a college linebacker has. And I feel like they've been coached so much to either be looking at your backs or at your guards. And we want to find out early in the game which one they're looking at. If they're looking at our backs, then we're going to get guards to the point of extra guards there as much as possible, right? Because they're not looking at them. We're going to get more guys there. If you are looking at our guards, then we keep pulling them opposite and running away from them. And now we're taking your two best players away. I feel like that, I can't think of a faster way to get an advantage in such an easy way than that. I love it. I'm addicted to it. So I'm going to let these guys know what I'm doing, give you guys an opportunity to sign off and say your goodbyes. Make sure you hit everybody up with your Twitter handle so they can find you. Guys in the chat, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully you checked in. If you didn't check in, please check in. And if you could leave us a thumbs up and or subscribe to the channel, we'd really appreciate it. Following these guys, we're going straight into an online clinic, and this clinic will be up for about 24 hours. It's on Gap Run Scheme from Toby Vallis out of Farmington, Illinois. They're 30-3 over the last 3 years. I hope you'll check it out. The first 10 to 20 seconds of that video will be silent. The sound is not on it. That's because I have to cut out my intro music or else this video gets flagged. So, hey, live and learn with that stuff. So the sound will be coming back, but it'll be a little delay there. So as we sign off, guys, any closing thoughts or let guys know how they can find you? Thank you so much for joining us. Grady, I'll let you kick it off.
Thanks for having me. This is second or third time, third time together, second on one of these.
Yeah.
I'll only say that now you got to go out to Vancouver, Washington and talk some empty pass game.
It's true. That's true. I need to.
Only if you want to get dumber. No, I appreciate you having me on, and great to talk with Grady again, and Nate, appreciate you, and just a great opportunity to talk football. It sounds like all three of us kind of been pushed back to the spring. But trying to do my best to get my football fixed by being able to talk with coaches and not only to better myself too, getting ideas from everybody. But my Twitter is Coach Peck 11. If anybody wants to follow or talk ball, I'd love that opportunity. And I want to learn from you just as much as if you probably won't learn anything from me, but at least I'll be able to talk ball to somebody.
We appreciate the humility. Coach Peck 11 and Grady's is at Open Cross Plant. Guys, thanks again. Thanks for joining us. We're going to have a little 20-second transition time of silence as I get that clinic video up. Guys, look me up if you ever need anything. Appreciate you.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care.